I'm still waiting. You're still waiting. We're waiting together, and isn't it hard to wait? What is waiting? Waiting is a response that's directly connected to time. Now, time is a gift from God. Waiting is my response to this gift of time. How do we generally wait? Well, we naturally respond to waiting with impatience. Impatience. And we continually blame our impatience on the fact that we do not have enough, finish it for me, time. We justify our crummy attitude because we're going through a hard time. We're sad because we're not having a good time. I am so done with this COVID time. And we get infected with something worse than a virus. We live infected with impatience. All of us know impatience. I saw her when I ran past the mirror 5 minutes ago before I came out into my garden room. We hear impatience when we're in a traffic jam. If we ever get in our cars again and go someplace, and we get in a traffic jam, what do you hear? You hear impatience. Somebody's honking their horn because someone is driving 5 miles per hour too slow, or somebody cut somebody off and they're in a rush, We taste impatience. I gulped down my coffee and it was way too hot and I tasted impatience. So we all know the manifestation of impatience, but do we know what impatience is? See, because we really don't define it, we only describe it. Like to our girlfriends as we go on and on and on about what a tough time or what a hard time or what an awful time. And we keep describing it with impatience. We actually root down in a deeper way as we give all this verbiage and all this liberty as we talk about how hard, how trying, or how sad, and then our reaction to it. So let's define it truthfully, because then we can deal with the root of it. If I just keep living with impatience, she's a terrible roommate. She's awful to live with. So let's identify her. What is impatience? Impatience is unbelief. Would you say that with me? Because my first step in dealing with it is identifying it truthfully. My impatience is unbelief. It is doubting the wisdom of God's timing or the goodness of God's plan for my time, for my life, for my race. God says, child, don't live with impatience. She's going to ruin the race. She's going to ruin your time. I have the solution, and I have exactly what you need for this waiting time, this corona time, and the time that's going to come after the corona time. So take your Bibles and turn to, now you know where we're going to turn, because I'm talking about a race and I'm talking about impatience. So you're probably already there. I hope you are. It's Hebrews chapter 12, verse number 1. God has given me a certain time for my life. And he says, child, run. Well, we didn't need to be told that because we do that automatically. The first time I studied this, it was for my own heart, because I was running and running and nothing was working. Nothing. The run was exhausting. The run was empty. And I was filled with impatience. I love what David writes in Psalm 119. One of my goals during this waiting time, this Corona-19 time, is to read Psalm 119 every day and asking God to give me a truthful nugget that just will so delight me, that will so meet a need in my life. And one of the things that I ran across is found in verse 59. And David writes, I thought on my ways. Okay, stop right there. Why would David, who is king, who is ruler and authority over anything, stop to think on his ways? I'll tell you why. His ways weren't working. His way was not working. We've been there. We aren't king, we aren't queen, we aren't even princess. But we know when our way isn't working. And over 3 decades ago, when I started seeking out my impatience and why I was so filled with it, I found out the truth of Psalm 119:59. I thought on my ways, and then David said, I turned my feet. I turn my feet. Now this is directional. He turns his feet. Where did he turn to? Who did he turn to? He turned to God and his testimonies. And that's exactly where God wants to take me, when I will stop and I will think on my ways and I will say, God, my way's not working. Teach me. Show me. I will walk. It goes back to that other Bible study we had where David also prayed, teach me thy way, O Lord. I will, it's a matter of my choice, I will walk in thy truth. Unite my heart. So he turned to God's testimonies, to God, as an example to say, child, when you read this, if your way isn't working, stop and think on your ways. Don't keep making the same mistake over and over. Don't keep doing what you are doing that's not working. Don't keep thinking what you're thinking that's not working. Think and say, my way isn't working. God, show me your way. That's step number 1. And you know what? When I pray that, all the angels in heaven rejoice. They do a backflip and they say, she's finally getting it. She finally sees that her way doesn't work and God has a beautiful way. So teach me. I love the verse where God's word is described as a lamp and a light. Thy word is a lamp and a light unto what? My feet. Again, it's directional. It's going back. It's connecting to this Psalm 119 that David writes. And he says, Father, your word lights and directs my way. It directs my feet. Well, back when I first began studying this and I knew my way wasn't working. Now, I'm not going to go into all the reasons why my run wasn't working, why I was so filled with impatience. Because you know what? Those reasons are just excuses. They're excuses that keep us stuck in the wrong way, keep me living with impatience. When you and I say, this is a hard time because, or this rotten time is not my fault, or I'm in this mess because of you, all of this just keeps us stuck. And it doesn't take us to God's solution. Well, I knew I was stuck. And I knew that none of this was my fault. But all that does is feed my pride. And I humbled my heart and I said, God, it's not working. I'm not working. I will turn to your way. Teach me. Well, I grabbed my Bible and I grabbed my Cruden's Concordance. I love my Cruden's Concordance. Doug got me my own copy over 30 years ago because what your Cruden's does, now I know you can get it with all the devices and stuff, but I still love the tactile authenticity of hard copy. All you have to do is take a single word and look it up in your Cruden's and it will give you biblical truth all throughout Scripture that teaches all about the word that you're looking up. It's God's truth to me concerning. So I looked up impatience because I just was filled. I was filled with impatience. It was like I was being pushed. And an anxiety was just always there. So I looked up impatience. I was coexisting with her. I was exhausted. And also, when you live with impatience, you know what she breeds? She breeds fear. Every time she breeds fear. Well, I was running, I was never sleeping, I was racing, I was dealing with issues that I just wanted to see the answer, and I was doing everything I could do, and it wasn't happening. I was impatient. All for reasons I didn't have control over. Now, my dear listener, you have been there. You've been exactly there, and maybe you're there today. You cannot live this life without dealing with this issue. God knows that. And God says, child, I am giving you a choice that is going to so deliver you, but you've got to turn my way. So, knowing I was stuck, sitting on the couch in the parsonage, probably crying because I was stuck and I was tired and I was exhausted, my prudence took me to Hebrews 12:1. And I love this. It begins. So let us, oh wait, stop right there. What is wrapped up in that us? Let us. I am not alone. I felt alone, but that's not the truth. The truth is we are not alone. God is always with us. Dear listener, in this hard time, in this waiting time, whatever it might be, whatever is building fear inside of you, you are not alone. God is with you. So it begins with, first of all, let us run. Yeah, we know all about running. We don't have to be instructed there. And then God says, let us run with patience. I distinctly remember saying, really? Really? You mean it's not enough that I'm running and that I'm never sleeping and that I have these responsibilities that I just don't know what to do with? And on top of everything else, God, you're adding something to my to-do list? You're telling me, add patience? See, our thinking is so skewered. It's so tied in with our natural ways, with our fleshly thinking. God's ways and God's thoughts are very different than mine. They're higher. And God says, child, until you ask me to teach you, and you are willing to change your thoughts, nothing can happen. But when you do, you aren't going to believe what's going to happen. So, humbly in my heart, I said, Father, teach me, because I don't get this. I need to be taught. Well, one of the cross references in this, so let us run with patience, took me to 2 Peter. It was the first time I studied this and connected all the dots. And 2 Peter chapter 1 says, I have all things for life and godliness. Really? Because I felt like I had nothing for this life. I felt like I was losing my life. I did not know how to control my life. And godliness, that was, well, I hope that was there, but I wasn't sure. Peter says, Kathy, you've got everything for life and godliness. Well, it got my attention because I was so very needy. So let this truth sink in. If you are in a needy time, memorize 2 Peter chapter 1, 2, and 3, where God's truth tells me, child, you have all things for life and godliness. According to, see, now he's going to reference why I can trust that I have everything for life and godliness. He says, you have everything for life and godliness according to God's divine power. His divine power. So stop right there. Now dwell on that. Chew on this. His divine power. I have all things for life and godliness because of His divine power. Not because of what I can do. Not because of what I'm trying to do. But because of what He has done and what He is doing and what He has promised to do. In other words, He is in control. In my needy time, in my waiting time, state the truth right out loud. God, you're in control. You are in control of this time. In other words, did any of you help the sun come up this morning? No. The very fact that the sun came up this morning should be the testament to the fact that God's in control. God has all power. God has an order. I can trust God's power, God's order, God's control. And I love what another verse in Psalm 19 that I've gleaned from during this time in verse 90, this is what it says. Thy faithfulness is unto all generations. Thou hast established the earth, and it abideth. Okay, did any of you help rotate the earth on its axis today? I think I may be contributing to that as I keep gaining weight during this waiting time. But I'm I'm not tipping the earth, I'm only tipping the scales. But did any of us control that? No. God established the earth, and it abideth. Now get this. They continue this day according to thine ordinances, for all are thy servant. I can trust God. According to his divine power, he hath given us all things that pertain unto life and godliness. All things. Kathy, you know that fear that keeps pushing at you inside? You know that anxiety that keeps you racing even though you're sitting? Kathy, God's divine power pertains to that fear. You know, as you run your schedule and you're always running out of time with Clint's issues and getting to therapy every week, God's power relates to that time crunch. You know those convulsions your precious daughters keep having every time they have a fever? Tooth comes in, they get a fever, they go into convulsions. You know those convulsions that you live in fear of? Do you know God knows when they're going to happen? And if they're going to happen together? And what's going to happen because they happen? God knows all about that. According to his divine power, he is in charge of all of that. And Kathy, you're living in fear of what if? What if those convulsions cause brain damage? What if? I think there are a couple phrases that I have identified in my life that are from the dark pit. What if is one of them. If only is another. And since I've been labeled elderly, a number of years ago, the other one has become used to. I used to have this. I used to be able to do that. It's a pit. It's not the truth. Because sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, and God has promised me according to his divine power, I have all things that I need for today. And I love that victory. I love that freedom. But I had to learn it. And I was living in fear of what if. And I had to learn to trust God, because I'm going to tell you now what patience is, and this is the beautiful freedom of it. First of all, what if, I'm going to tell you what it breeds. Tell you what if breeds. It breeds more fear. It stirs the pot. It empties that evil cauldron of anxiety and worry and stress and gray hair. And it floods you on the inside, and it's not from God. God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. There were times I felt like I was losing my mind. Kathy, trust me, I've got something for you to learn in your run. I've got something for you to add, and it's going to make all the difference in the world. So according to his divine power, he's given us all things that pertain unto life and godliness through the knowledge of him. Now, I can't stop here, but this is a whole nother Bible study. Dear listener, you have to have a knowledge of him. You have to know your God. You have to know your Father. How do you do that? Through his word. My faith is based. Now, faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. That's how I know my Father. Without faith, it's impossible to please him. But with faith, I can do all things. We're together. The basis of that relationship is knowing my Father. And I get to know him through his word. Through the knowledge of him that has called us to glory and virtue. He's called you to something today. Are you paying attention? He's called you to glory. Glory in him. And we're going to get in that in the second part of this. But first of all, let's get back to the beginning. That ye might be partakers, because this is so good. That ye might be partakers of the divine nature. And there goes on, having escaped. What have I escaped? I've escaped from living out of my own fallen nature. Kathy, you don't have to live there anymore. That's filled with fear. It's filled with anger. It's filled with... If I walk in the flesh, Scripture defines and describes how awful that is. But you don't have to. You can turn your feet. You can turn your way back to God's ways. And then you get to be a partaker of his divine nature. You get to pull your chair up to his table. And he says, child, take an extra serving here. This is what you need to learn first. You need to learn to run with patience. So I have everything I need for life and godliness because I get to be a partaker of his divine nature. I get to live out of his strength. Mine was gone. I get to live out of his wisdom. I could not understand how, why, when. I get to live out of his power. I had no power because I don't have it in me to live this life apart from my Father. And it all has to do with learning to run with patience. And apart from learning that, I'm not going to do this life, but doing it with patience. Learning that patience, again, remember what that means. Impatience is unbelief. It's not believing in God's timing nor God's goodness for the plan of my life. So learning patience, it's a trusting time as I wait that, God, I will trust you with all my heart. I won't lean on my understanding. In all my ways, I'm going to acknowledge you. That gets back to the glory part that we're going to talk about. I'll acknowledge you in, what a trust is built because of the waiting time. Years ago, Doug and I are big game players, and we were playing a game of Buddy. We were at the kitchen table, and of course Clint was there. And he was rooting for Daddy because he always roots for Daddy. And we were sitting there, and as we were playing, we were watching the squirrels eat all of our birdseed. And Doug looked at Clint, and he said, Clint, do you want to shoot the gun? Now, for those listeners, perhaps there's someone listening, and you don't know my son, Clint, our son. Clint is now 35. He was born with Down syndrome. And he is he's sunshine. I wish you could meet him. I wish you could know him. But he says to Clint, you want to shoot the gun? And I'm going, Doug! What? I didn't say it out loud. I did say Doug out loud. I said to myself, what is he thinking? And Doug turns to me and he says, Kathy, Clint is 19. To which Clint turned to me and said, Mother, I'm 19. So they got the gun. Now this gun, it's a pellet gun. It's a very high-powered pellet gun. It has a scope on it. It's the real deal. It's big. It's powerful. And so Doug patiently shows Clint how to hold this gun. Doug's got his arms around Clint as he's holding the gun with him. He's whispering in his ear, okay, Clint, hold your breath. Now look through this scope, hold your breath, put your finger on the trigger, and when you hold your breath, aiming where you need to aim because you're looking through the scope, pull the trigger. Clint puts the gun up. He takes a deep breath. He puts his finger on the trigger. He looks through the scope. Then he stops and he looks at me and he says, he's teaching me, Mom. He's teaching me. Puts the gun back up, looks through the scope, aims, holds his breath, pow! Shoots the gun. Did he hit the squirrel? Well, I'm not going to tell you just yet, because the meaningful, sweet poignancy of that moment was Clint doing something he never could have done apart from the enablement of his dad, apart from his dad showing him. You see, what Clint liked the best about his shooting experience, it's not whether or not he got the squirrel. What he liked best was his dad's arms around him, teaching him. Doug's spirit communicating to Clint's spirit, you can do this. I'm teaching you. I'm showing you how. Dear listener, you can't do this day without God showing you how. My moments will miss the mark every time. When God calls me to add patience to my run, It is not one more thing that I need to do. God calls for me to add patience because it makes my run eternal. It makes my run rewarding. It's like life empties continually and God fills when I am with Him. It's the filling from God's divine nature. Remember, going back to the scripture you need to memorize. He's given me all things for life and godliness according to His divine nature. Now, what is His divine nature? Well, it's described in Galatians 5:22. It's the fruit from His Spirit that indwells us, that lives inside of us, to enable us, to teach us how to do this day, how to hit the mark, how to be rewarded in the run. And He tells me, add patience, and you're going to experience the fruit from me. Don't choose impatience. Choose patience. Remember, impatience is unbelief. It's doubting the wisdom of God's timing or the goodness of God's plan for me. Did Clint hit the squirrel? Well, you're going to find out in part 2. But even better, in part 2, you're going to understand as we walk through this issue of adding patience to our run, exactly, practically, how can I do that in my moments?